Thank you very much, Worshipful Sir, and Brother Steve for helping me out with this. I'll say I'll try to keep it very short, although as a historian, I tend to talk more and more in detail about things than I probably should, but let's get right into it. I called you in regards to some Masonic research about the St. Tammany Lodge number 5 incident, which, if I say so myself, I think is a very true testament to Masonic principles, and that's partially why Brother Steve and I have a friend, a Brotherhood Undivided, the monument at Gettysburg up. St. Tammany's Lodge number 5 was chartered under the United Grand Lodge of England on February 26, 1759, as a lodge at Hampton. During the American Revolution, what was then called St. Tammany's Lodge, as well as 8 other lodges, met in Williamsburg Lodge to form the Grand Lodge of Virginia, Botetourt being one. At this point, we received our number, which is 5. Flash forward to 1861. St. Tammany's Lodge has now been burned twice, once in the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. Our last meeting was held on April 29th, 1861. A week prior, Virginia had voted to secede, setting off a chain of events that would undoubtedly lead to death and destruction for the people of Virginia and the South in general, and the pillaging and razing of St. Tammany's Hall in Hampton to the ground. We would not meet again until 1866. The War of Secession officially started in April of that year, and for weeks, the rhetoric was really more heated than the battles. In Hampton, it is known that Confederate soldiers exchanged notes with Union-occupied Fort Monroe in an effort to avoid violence. In August of 1861, an early warning sign for how this war would go emerged. Having almost entirely evacuated Hampton by August 7th, in the late hours of the night, the town was burned with the intent, as they put it, to keep it from falling into Yankee hands. It set the tone of the war for and was an earlier warning sign of how all-out war was waged ferociously. Hampton had been described as one of the most beautiful Southern towns, on par with Charleston. In mere hours, that was gone. Over 130 buildings disappeared in the flames. The waterfront was lit. Hampton was the first town burned in the Civil War and remains the only one burned by its own inhabitants. Sometime between our last stated and August 7th, a brother of our lodge retrieved our solid silver jewels cast in the 1750s and 60s for us and stashed them away. It was also during this time that a brother of the invading Federal Army, Lieutenant and Quartermaster John H. Chase, past master of Temple Lodge number 14, became aware of St. Tammany's Hall. Sometime during the evacuation of Hampton and before the burning, several Union brethren planned and implemented a mission to save what they could of St. Tammany's Hall. Now, let me be frank, not much is truly known of the specific facts of the mission, how long it took, what problems they encountered, so it's not mentioned. But we know that it was a dangerous road ahead. You could say perhaps one beset by ruffians. The Confederates hadn't entirely abandoned Hampton yet, after all. But somehow they persisted and smuggled all of our artifacts they could behind their lines. It is known that the brethren involved in this rescue attempt consisted of Major General Benjamin Franklin Butler of Pentucket Lodge in Massachusetts, Captain John Mulford, who was the charter master of Myrtle Lodge, number 131, Captain John Butler, Central City Lodge, 315, Lieutenant William E. Blake of Excelsior Lodge, 195, which is now known as Franklin Lodge, number 195, and Lieutenant John H. Chase, Temple Lodge, number 14. It is also known that the items saved included, but were not limited to, a Holy Bible that was donated to the lodge upon receipt of our Virginia Charter in 1787, our then current record book, the oldest minutes of which date to a meeting in 1827. All prior records were destroyed either in one of the 2 previous fires or in the conflagration that happened mere hours later. And our 1813 reprint of our 1787 Virginia Charter, the original having been burned in the War of 1812. A 1824 Masonic apron worn by a brother of our lodge to a Masonic reception for Brother Lafayette. From here, the best description of events comes from Worshipful Chase himself. Below is a letter from him, and it's addressed to the Grand Master of Maryland, and starts with to Fort McHenry, Maryland, November 25th, 1861. Honorable John S. Berry, Most Worshipful Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of free and accepted Masons of the state of Maryland. Most Worshipful Sir and Brother, the 3rd Regiment of New York Volunteers, to which I am attached, encamped in June last at Camp Hamilton, Virginia, some 2 miles from Fortress Monroe and about 1 mile from the village of Hampton. The village had been deserted by its inhabitants a short time previous to our arrival, and in such haste as to leave libraries, furniture, and etc. exposed to pillage and plunder. And I will preface this by saying I am reading exactly from the letter. Exposed to the pillage and plunder of the hordes of Negroes who congregated there immediately on the departure of the citizens. Much valuable property had been taken and destroyed by them. Learning there was a Masonic hall in the place and fearing for its safety, I reported the fact to Major General Butler and obtained from him an order to take a sufficient force, proceed to Hampton, and take possession of such property belonging to the Masonic order, as was thought proper, and report to him. In accordance with this order, Colonel Alford, commanding the 3rd Regiment, provided a detachment commanded by Captain Johnny Mulford, and he goes on to name the brothers that I've already named. We proceeded to Hampton, and with the officers referred to, visited the hall of St. Tammany Lodge, number 5. Nearly all the lodge furniture was found, including the records and warrants. The jewels had been removed probably by some member of the lodge. The property thus found I have retained in my possession, hoping that a favorable opportunity might present itself to forward it directly to Richmond. But not having had such an opportunity, I take great pleasure in transferring the effects to you for safekeeping, subject to the order of the Grand Lodge of Virginia. Since taking this property, the hall together with the entire village was destroyed by fire, and my associates with myself congratulate ourselves we were the humble instruments in rescuing the records and warrants from that conflagration. When this property shall be returned to our brethren in Virginia, please convey to them our fraternal regards, and say that although we come in defense of our just rights, as we honestly believe, still we come not to wage war upon an order expressly founded to inculcate the exercise of brotherly love, relief, and truth. With great respect, I remain fraternally, J.H. Chase. From here on out, it gets much murkier. We know that there was correspondence between the Grand Lodge of Maryland, the Grand Lodge of New York, Chase, and at least one member of the Grand Lodge of Virginia, but not much more information beyond that. Chase brought the items to Fort McHenry, Maryland, but where they were stored exactly is still a mystery. Most Worshipful Berry, the Grand Master of Maryland, did write a somewhat lengthy letter that is full of commas and run-on sentences. But to sum it up, it is most gratifying to have in this evidence that even when engaged in the battlefield, in the deadly strife of war, we do not forget our Masonic ties or the duties we owe to the brethren of our noble and time-honored order. It serves to convince us that there live in the hearts of all true Masons those fixed principles that will prompt them when the din of battle shall have ceased, and brother no longer stands in strife against brother, contending for what each believes to be right. Later, in the beginning of 1862, early 1862, James Campbell, having previously reported the incident to the Grand Lodge of Virginia when they met in December of 1861, he writes a letter to Most Worshipful Berry, requesting them to be forwarded to him and the Grand Lodge of Virginia as soon as possible. And he does mention that it is incredibly hard to do so because of the ties between Baltimore and Richmond being cut. However, our artifacts were forwarded to our Grand Lodge in the fall of 1862, and there held until we returned after hostilities had ceased. The truth behind how it made it to Maryland where in Maryland it was kept, and how it made it to Richmond, the capital of the Confederacy, from behind enemy lines will likely never be fully known or understood. These brethren, as everyone is, were not perfect. Like everyone, some had a mixed record, but they are all still laudable as a true example of Masonic light and brotherhood when, in spite of being a part of an invading army, they, and I quote Brother Chase here, came not to wage war upon an order expressly founded to inculcate the exercise of brotherly love, relief, and truth. Now, to the unanswered questions, I say that rest assured, the brethren of old number 5 are searching for more light on this and other interactions. And this testament to the founding principles of our order, we will not rest until our day is done and we have received our wages of this information. And that comes with a great assistance from Steve Burge, our treasurer, our Right Worshipful Gary Heinmiller, the Grand Historian of New York, Worshipful Mike Hernandez, the historian of Ancient Temple, Right Worshipful John Updike, the historian of Myrtle Jefferson, Worshipful Gerard, and I will not attempt your last name, I apologize.
Easy, Zofeld.
Oh, that's easier than I thought. Worshipful Gerard Zofeld, the sitting master of Excelsior Lodge number 195, or specifically now Franklin Lodge, and countless brothers of our lodge. Now, moving on to the images we have included here. Below is a picture of us, or me rather, taken by Steve, holding and inspecting our Holy Bible that was given to us in 1787, one that a brother from your lodge held in his hands and smuggled out of Hampton as it was being, or preparing to be burned. Can you move on for me, Steve? This is it, and you can see it suffers extensive damage. One more page, Steve. This is the opening page signed by the masters and Captain Rogers, who donated this to us upon receipt of our charter in 1787. Another one, Steve. This is our opening page. One more, Steve. This is our record book. This is the oldest book, the one we call number 1. It is the book carried by a brother of your lodge to from Hampton to Camp Hamilton. Next page. This is a side view. You can see somebody decided to take care of it very nicely by putting Scotch tape on it for us. We were so appreciative. Very damaging. Next page. These are currently the oldest minutes that we have on record. As I mentioned before, this was at the time our current minute book. All records prior to that were either burned at a previous time or left in the lodge, as I suppose they weren't that important, which makes sense. They're brand new records, not very old at the time. This was held in honor to give a brother his final rites. Next page. This is the minutes of the last meeting. As you can see, there's a large difference in the size and how much he wrote. As you can also see that there are many pro tem officers. Having officers switched around, several missing. All it says is that after some time spent in harmony, there being no further business before this lodge, it was closed in ancient form and harmony. So Steve, this is not the best picture of our 1787 charter, which was, as you can quite possibly see, folded and placed, I presume, presumably in the pockets of several, if not of the brethren, if not William Blake, past master of your lodge. The next page. This is the apron that was carried out of our lodge prior to its being burned and saved by y'all. Next page. These are the jewels that they were taken before, but I figured we'd throw them in. They're solid silver cast by, off the top of my head, I cannot think of his name, but cast in Norfolk, or relatively nearby. Next page. This is our safe, which is where we keep our oldest artifacts, including the minute book, which y'all saved. Again, thank you. Next page. Now we figured we'd throw in just some images of our current lodge, just to sort of give you some basic information. I promise there's not much more.
No, it's okay.
This is our current lodge, St. Tammany Lodge number 5, meets 1456 West Queen Street, about 2 miles from where we originally met. One more, Steve. This is a much better picture of the entrance to our lodge. Steve. This is the entranceway to our lodge. Steve. This is the sacred altar and the 2 of the 3 burning tapers you can see. And it also gives you an interior view of our lodge. Our lodge room was built in 1969. After moving out of our old lodge room, we had over 1,000 members at this time. We do not now, but we had over 1,000 members, and we have images of having 800 members in lodge, which is why we have built it. We had built it so large. Steve. And that is it.
Well, that's great.
We are much obliged for you allowing us to talk. And
yeah, seriously.
Thank you, President. That's
Thank you for
a
having
beautiful presentation.
That was great.
Thank you, sir.
I can't thank you enough for showing us all that information. I'm going to share my screen just briefly because I have 2 things I can show you. I don't have pictures of our lodge room, which I would love to show off. Maybe we'll do that at another time. But 2 just simple things I will share. And that is, I hope you all can see this. This is a sort of breakdown of merger history from the 60s forward. So if you see there's the date of October 27th, 1967. That is when Polar Star, United States, Silentia, York, and Excelsior lodges concatenated and got together and became Peerless 195. After that, in December of 1976, Worth Lodge number 210 and Peerless 195 joined to become, again, Peerless 195. We also have some consolidation on the Franklin side.
Nope, just with
I'm sorry.
Peerless.
I'm sorry. True. That's right. True Light. Sirius Eureka became Sirius Eureka by Sirius and Eureka joining into Sirius Eureka. And then Eastern Star and Sirius Eureka became True Light. And then True Light and Peerless got together in 1983. And then in 2002 is when Franklin Lodge 216 and Peerless Lodge 195 joined to what is now Franklin 195, where we took the name from the one lodge and the number from the other lodge. And I believe, if I'm correct, our secretary, Richard Springer, was the first sitting master for what is now Franklin 195 after the merger. So,
yes.
Yep.
The last.
Yep, exactly. The last and the first of that sort of Peerless Franklin merger. The other thing I can just quickly show you is this is a trestle board from Franklin 216. If we're going to stick with the Franklin part of it just for a second, from 1943, and it sort of just gives the history of Franklin, which I believe got its charter in 1870. No, I'm sorry, 1851. And then was actually an upstate lodge in Westfield Center, New York, which was considerably north of Manhattan. Then it moved down to where it was for a number of years in northern Manhattan in, I believe, Washington Heights. right at the turn of the century, 1899, 1900, that kind of thing. And then we slowly just sort of made our way down Manhattan from 160th Street down to 70th Street, down to eventually the Grand Lodge building. And I'm not sure exactly when that happened, but we are now housed in our lodge room is in the Grand Lodge building on West 23rd Street, West 23rd Street in Manhattan. And if any other brother can enlighten my historical knowledge, please join in.
Brother Worshipful Gerard, just that the lodge was almost at the Canadian border.
Yeah, okay.
Originally, for the Franklin side, and
Yes.
and does have, as we can see, a lot of history all around. So,
Yep. And I mean, I know that if we go back to our library in the Grand Lodge, I'm sure they might have information on Excelsior and on Peerless. And I know we have a lot of records from Peerless in storage that probably tells an even deeper story. So, but I know, Brother Tom, you were saying, Tom Forrest, you were saying that it's not a common thing, I guess, especially for a lower number in Virginia, to have these consolidations where just from the shrinking membership in lodges, we've had a lot of consolidation and concatenation and such over the past, say, at least definitely 20 to 50 years. So,
Worshipful Bob could probably enlighten us a little more, as he's been in quite a bit longer, but I know I was surprised, which is why I said that, about the extensive record of consolidation of y'all's lodges, because I cannot, in the last 30 years and 40 years in my district, we have consolidated one lodge.
Yeah.
And although my lodge is not necessarily in a rural area, I would say y'all's is not either.
no.
Definitely not. It puts us to shame, but it's not exactly common in my district, so it surprised me, although I'm sure.
So I can actually add to that a little bit, because I've been doing some research for Botetourt Lodge. I forgot to mention I'm also a member of Botetourt Lodge, and I'm working with them to get some of their history tracked down. What happens in Virginia a lot of the times, or at least has in the past, is when a lodge goes dark, the Grand Lodge of Virginia would recycle that number, which is making it an absolute nightmare to get any history. Botetourt helped found a lodge called Centerville Lodge number 80. And doing the history, that number was reassigned and is currently an active lodge here in Virginia. So I'm trying to work with them. So we don't necessarily merge. They'll inactivate a number and reactivate it later on.
Oh, okay.
And to add to that real quick, that no longer happens since the 1950s, 60s, 70s. We've stopped doing that. But prior to that, it was a uncommon thing to have kept the number behind. So we are actually very lucky in that we have closed down 3 or 4 times, one for each war. And then I think one extra one when masonry was not doing so well in the 1830s. But we were lucky enough that they actually kept our number despite recycling other lodges' number during that very same time. So that is just a slightly different approach to a similar situation.
Well, Brother Bittner just
Picture.
I was going to say, Brother Bittner just sent me a very quick picture of our lodge room in the Grand Lodge that is without our furniture. It's when they were doing the renovations. So it is, I have to say, a really nice picture of the lodge room. Let me see, make sure I
emailed you one as well that has our furniture in it, I believe.
Oh,
Yeah, I just pulled it up. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I would say I have heard about the beauty of the Grand Lodge of New York, and it holds true.
Yeah,
Please come and visit. There's tours on Saturdays, pre-COVID. There are 12 rooms that are done each to a period of architecture. This is the French Empire, which is Napoleonic era. And each of the rooms are stunning. And Philadelphia has equally beautiful rooms, and Detroit as well.
So does this say, I apologize,
No,
looking at this, does it say that, do y'all take out the furniture and the altar often?
Not often, but for
No.
Gerard was, our Worshipful Master Zofeld was saying this was for renovations, but our trustees have also, certain rooms are able to be rented and then to take the furniture out. But so there are three rooms on each floor that have rooms, a floor in between typically for storage and office buildings. And then a lot of the middle rooms have been made into, bare like this, and you can use them, you can rent them for collation rooms, or people outside of the fraternity can also rent them, because our trustees, they own all the real property for the whole entire state. And we also have a Masonic home in Utica, New York, which is smack dab in the middle of New York State. And we also, have facilities there, and the division of our library. New York has one of the largest Masonic libraries, maybe the largest Masonic library in the world, which you're welcome to come and look at, or actually online. Their tours are phenomenal, and they have a YouTube channel so that you can see they do presentations once or twice a month, and they've got a nice backlog there. A few years ago, some of us curated at the museum, and we had, one of the things that passed through my hands was a letter from George Washington to invite people, it was a Revolutionary War general, to invite people to dinner. And they invited people a month ahead of time, and it was like a formal affair where you show up in a coach, and, there's just an endless amount of things there. Like, I thought I knew something about masonry, but every pin that passes through and things people leave, metals, like, you might not even find out what they are. It's amazing. So I encourage you, if you're coming up, and we meet on the third Monday. So if you want to stop by, give us a shout.
What a coincidence, as do we.
yeah, the third Monday. Yeah.
Do not worry. I most certainly plan to make a trip. I'm sure Steve and Herbert would love to join me.
I would absolutely
Yeah.
love to.
When
I
it,
think Botetourt might come along too. It's a train ride's only 3 hours from here.
That's true.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
far at all. So, as soon as this pandemic lets up, yeah, visiting sounds like a very good idea. That sounds great.
Yeah, I mean, typically there's something going on, several lodges meeting every night, or different Masonic organizations, it's a lot.
I can imagine with the number of rooms that y'all have, y'all must be quite busy.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it'd be a sight to see.
just in Manhattan alone, Richard, help me out. There's 5 districts, 7 districts.
Um,
7.
About 7
So-
active, the numbers are
7
all
active.
spread out, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the numbers are spread out. But brethren, we also have, if for our friends and brethren from Virginia, we also have one, well, it's not this year because of COVID, but there is also a time when one of our lodges, Garibaldi Lodge, which operates in Italian, does a degree, which they do in our Grand Lodge room. And we actually get buses that come from other states to come see that. It's the first degree where the emphasis is placed, and it's in that lodge. And it's quite entertaining. So that would be a good time for you to come up as well and see our lodge. Maybe when this whole virus mess is over, we can coordinate something with you guys, and you can come up at that time, and we can still do something special with our lodge, or at least show you our room and have you to dinner and so forth.
I appreciate this chance to speak, and I appreciate you educating me and us on your history, which I know I can speak for me and Steve, we find fascinating.
Thank you, brethren. I mean, my God, it's amazing to learn this part of our history that we weren't really aware of.
No, not at all. I don't think any of us knew about this part of our history. So, and as I said, I talked with you, Tom Forrest, that I'm a social studies teacher, so I eat this stuff up. This is what I do all day. I'm actually teaching the Civil War right now, virtually, to my students in the Bronx. So this was great. It was really a lot of fun.
That is quite good timing.
Worshipful Zofeld and our brothers in Franklin, you may remember I had mentioned a while ago that I had heard way back from a history that was a member of our lodge who I believe was a general who actually there's a sword in the Smithsonian Institute from that member of our lodge. So whether that's related to this in some way, I don't know, but it would be interesting to find out. There's a lot of history in our lodge, a lot of history. So it's good to hear these things because it's confirming that there is a lot of history in the lodge, you know?
Yeah.
So
It quite possibly could be. I mean, we don't necessarily know that much about our history either. I mean, we've been burned 3 times. The only thing that saved us at all the last time was a member of your lodge and 4 more from New York. Otherwise, we would have no records.
No.
And we probably honestly would not have come back. Because we did not come back until a year after most of the lodges in Virginia had started back up. And that's why I mentioned we were very lucky they kept our number, because otherwise they would have just given it away like they have done before. But that would be really interesting to see if that is the same person.
Yeah.
So, gentlemen, I know Thomas isn't going to toot his own horn, so I'm going to do it for him.
Please don't.
He is 22 years old, a senior warden of our lodge, and slated to become master next year. This man puts more work in than half the people I know. He deserves all the credit and more for this. I'm just the guy next to the guy. So hats off to you, man. Really.
Yeah.
Please,
Did great.
please ignore
You have the
Steve. I
coming
believe we
zeal.
have a Cowan.
Yeah, you have the coming zeal. It's great to see. I wasn't going to mention it, but you did look kind of young. The beard take that off and wow. Yeah.
It is not, that's why I have the beard.
That's why I don't.
Well, perhaps one day I'll switch. Also, it helps. It's cold outside, so that helps.
Yeah, that's true for sure. Definitely up here. So,
Although may I ask, somewhat unrelated, what temperature is it outside today?
it was up to about 33, 34 up where I am, which is about an hour north of the city. And it'll probably be in the upper 20s overnight.
That's actually relatively similar, to be honest. It's supposed to get warmer for us for the next 2 days and then go back down to, we've had 20s and 30s again.
Yeah.
So that's
So
Virginia
not too
weather
far
for you.
off. Yeah, not too far off, not too different. So
Yeah, no, for the most part, except for we did have Thursday last week. We had less than 30s on Wednesday, 70 degrees on Thursday, and then less than 30s on Friday,
oh,
which is just throwing us for a loop.
yeah,
Uh,
we didn't get that warm.
no, I did not like it much either, to be honest. But brethren, if what? Oh, does anybody have any questions or anything I could answer?
No, I'd love to get the names that you said of especially of the brother who from Excelsior Lodge.
I can give you his name right this moment, but I would be more than happy to forward the research, the
Yeah,
article.
I can forward that out to everybody and put everybody in contact. So
Yeah, because I'd love to submit it to the library,
for sure. Yeah.
you know, because they'd love to have it and, you know, maybe put it on their website and maybe they'll even ask you to talk at some point, you know?
I don't know if it's worth listening to me, but I appreciate that.
Oh, it's a
Oh, I think
fascinating
so.
story. I think it would be.
I think it definitely would be.
We actually plan on chasing this down a little further, getting more details, getting a little bit, as much as we possibly can from the stuff we have, and hopefully finding some more. We're going to cross-reference different lodges that are around here, the Grand Lodge here in Virginia. But this is not the end of this story for us at all.
Well, I think Tom's right. We're gonna check out in our library with Excelsior and try and, you know, put a feeler out and just see what they have or know or anything like that. So
Worshipful. I have Lieutenant William E. Blake, Excelsior Lodge 195.
I think he just wrote it down. Yeah, perfect.
Beautiful. Yeah, Rich, if you can find out who that general was, I think without his name, it would be tough to.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I had started to do some research on that upstate part of things, and that's where I came across that. And I have to go back and revisit that. Unfortunately, some of those, well, that is back in Rhode Island right now, but that's stuff that I had started doing. But I can start to piece things together again while I'm still down here for a bit. So very, very interesting. I'm glad to hear that there really is so much to this lodge. You know, we have lodges in a district, to inform our brother Virginia. We have lodges in a district. One is named Pacific Lodge. And we also had an Atlantic Lodge. Atlantic Lodge became part of another lodge, but the reason the lodges were named Atlantic and Pacific were because each of those lodges had members who had either built or owned the first, I believe, steamships that crossed the Atlantic and the Pacific. Many members of our own lodge, of the Peerless side of the lodge, were members who built most of the docks in Manhattan, which are probably used now, but most of the docks in Manhattan were built by members of our lodge. So it's very different as to what the differences in the lodges of what they have, but there's always a lot of history in lodges, and I wish more were conscious of it and more would research their history, because it's fascinating, really.
Really is. And we don't have a place to keep it so much either, unless it's at Russ's house.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, something else, Worshipful Brother Springer has told us, one of the former lodges that you saw in what Worshipful Master Zofel presented was Polar Star Lodge, and they were explorers. They were people that explored the North and South Pole, you know, and so one of the windows at our facility in Utica, we have a chapel there, and I guess it's got 8 or 10 stained glass windows, was purchased by that lodge. So when we go there, we're sure to visit it. But it's all this rich history that we don't have actually written down in one place. You know, we've got a folder at our Grand Lodge that has trestle boards from the past 20 years and some historical records, but not a lot. You know, you have to dig through the Grand Lodge proceedings to see more. There's not many places you can find it. It's tough.
Yeah. It can be exceedingly hard, exceedingly rare to find people that both appreciate the history and the records of the history. Especially when people don't appreciate it, it just disappears.
Oh yeah. I mean, we're looking at our Grand Lodge library. I found it, you know, 150 years ago or a little less. One of our masters sued the Grand Master over an insurance issue from Franklin Lodge 195. He required that lodges hold this insurance, but there was really no way for them to get it. And you know, that was just something I tripped across. And you know, as time goes on, we have digital search, so you can search the records, and I think that might have led to it. So I did a digital search on Franklin Lodge, the former Franklin Lodge. I think we were 216 before we merged with Peerless to become Franklin 195, and they had it came up in the index or in the to look it up. So I went and pulled that proceedings down and read it until I found that part.
That is quite interesting, and I cannot imagine somebody here doing that. Suing, do we know if he won?
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was settled. You know, it was a matter that was settled that you know, they found some facility to purchase the insurance. You know.
Well, I take it as a win-win then.
Yeah, I think that's what I kind of got to, but it was taking more time than I had to follow up in the next following few years proceedings.
Yeah.
But I mean, you guys, you know, Washington, D.C. might be a good place. I don't know if the George Washington National Monument, which is like, I believe run by the Scottish Rite, they have a pretty healthy library resources.
Yeah, it's actually, well, it should be just a hop, skip, and a jump away, but because of the traffic, DC traffic, it becomes about 4 hours for us. Although it is beautiful, and I have enjoyed visiting it before.
Unless you take the train.
Let's take the train. Yeah, touche.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like the traffic going from Washington to your area on the summer weekend. That is, it's taken me over 10 hours to get from DC to down to Little Creek. So
Give
Oh.
Virginia Beach to North Carolina.
yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Ah, And I
It's bad.
experience it
It's
every
just
day.
bad everywhere. It's just nasty all the time. You're right there.
Yeah.
Brother.
Yeah.
We don't have much traffic in New York City,
oh yeah, definitely not.
Not now.
though. Not now.
No, I have no reason to complain, although I will still continue to complain. So those daggum tunnels, Mount Merrimack, kills me every day.
Yeah.
I
Well,
work at
go ahead.
I work at Norfolk Naval Shipyard, just a little ways away from Little Creek, and I have to cross through Mount America every day, and I'm going, an appropriate speed, and next thing I know, I'm going 45. Worshipful, you were saying? I apologize.
No, I'm not saying anything. Just about to just say thank you so much for taking the time. And we do this right now every third Monday of the month until we actually start meeting in person. So if I have another presentation or anything else coming up, I'll definitely invite you out, because I would not bore you with our business, but if we're doing something fun, I definitely will invite you. So,
Well, we
Yeah.
appreciate the invitation, and we appreciate you sharing your history with us. And this is, I'm sure Steve and I will talk about this later and just be giddy with excitement.
well,
Yeah.
I think you've started off a nice mutual admiration society. So we will be in
This
touch
sound
definitely from here on out. We'll figure out visiting and corroborating on history, and yeah, for sure.
wonderful.
Right, worshipful and brothers, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, you can.
Hi, my name is Bobby Whitehouse. I'm the sitting master over at St. Tammany, and I just wanted to, thank you guys for giving us some time on your meeting. It was really appreciated. I'm going to just tell you that Brother Thomas and Brother Steve have done an excellent job compiling all this together, and they're getting that history out, and they're getting it out to folks like y'all, and we appreciate you giving us some time to listen to it. And thanks for saving our stuff too.
Wish we could take credit.
Yeah.
It's great stuff. All right. Well, we're just about on time for when we usually close our meeting. So it's perfect time to say goodnight. And like I said, we will definitely be in touch. I'll create an email list for everybody, so everybody has everybody else's contact information. They want to reach out to anybody they want and get involved.
All right. Good job, everybody. Fantastic. This was an excellent forum, especially when it talks about history and no, it doesn't matter how far away. I mean, Virginia and New York, we're still connected somehow, and then that's done through a lot of the interactions between our brothers, past and present. That's testament of this whole organization, and that's a lot of the reasons why I do it right now. The camaraderie and the brotherhood of the brethren. I'll give you one quick story, and then I'll get out of here. And it's something I've talked to Brother Steve about. It's how these minutes come together somehow. The minutes of our lodge may have something to do with the minutes of another lodge that the other lodge doesn't have any recollection. I'll give you one point. About 15 years ago, we came across a note from another sister lodge in Virginia. This happened, it was an issue, their building burnt in the late 1800s. Dispatch went out through the Grand Lodge, and Botetourt gave them about $2 back then. That was a lot of money. We came across that. We contacted the master of that lodge. They had no idea that ever happened. They had no records. we provided them the records. We provided the information. In fact, we drove there. It was about 2.5 hours away. And we presented the master with that original, it was like a dispatch. We framed it and everything. And now we're connected. Now they have the history. So this is why this is all, we're connected in some sort of way. That's why we have to talk to each other, because somebody has the info of somebody else. So again, thanks a lot. I appreciate everything.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you, Worshipful, for attending.
Thank you.
One very last short thing is that just as that situation, brethren from New York saving us, our artifacts, was a true example of Masonic principles and brotherhood, so is this. This is really something that unites people from two very different areas, and it's solely over Freemasonry. This would not have happened otherwise, and we are very appreciative for then to your ancestors, and we are very appreciative to you, Worshipful.
Well, thank you. And thank you, like I said, for making the call and reaching out and getting this ball rolling. So
Thank you very much.
So since this is, I guess, my meeting, does anybody have anything else to bring before this virtual lodge before I close? Well, there is no ritual, but that's the sound of the gavel. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Again, we will do this again soon. I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fred.
Right.
Hey, have a good night.
Good night. Stay safe.